Good morning, students. Today we are discussing about Mendelian inheritance. Mendelian inheritance is a type of biological inheritance that follows the principles originally proposed by Gregor Mendel in 1865 and in 1866. And Mendel, a 19th century Moravian monk who formulated his ideas after conducting simple hybridization experiments in pisum sativa. Mendel cultivated and tested some 5,000 pea plants in the garden of his monastery. And inheritance can be defined as a process of how an offspring receives genetic information from the parent. The whole process of heredity is dependent upon inheritance, and it is the reason that the offsprings are similar to their parents. This simply means that due to inheritance, the member of the same family possess similar characteristics. It was only during the mid 19th century that people started to understand inheritance in a proper way. This understanding of inheritance was made possible by a scientist named Gregor Mendel, who formulated certain laws to understand inheritance, known as Mendel's law of inheritance. Between 1856 and 1863, Mendel conducted these hybridization experiments on the garden pea plants. During that period, he chose some distinct characteristics of the peas and conducted some cross pollination or artificial pollination on pea plants. Then, why he selected this pea plant for his experiments? Due to some reasons, the pea plants can be easily grown and maintained. They are naturally self pollinating but also can be cross pollinated. It is an annual plant and it has several contrasting characters. Mendel conducted two main experiments to determine the law of inheritance. That they are monohybrid cross experiment and dihybrid cross experiment. Now, what is monohybrid cross? In this type of experiment, Mendel took two pea plants of opposite traits, means just say one short and one tall, and crossed them. He found the first generation offsprings were tall and called F1 progeny. Then he crossed the F1 progeny and obtained both tall and short plants in the ratio 3:1. Mendel even conducted this experiment with other contrasting traits like green peas versus yellow peas, round versus wrinkled, and that tall versus short. From this, he formulated the law of segregation and law of dominance. And in dihybrid cross experiment, Mendel considers two traits, each having two alleles. He crossed wrinkled green seed and a round yellow seeds and observed that all the first generation progeny were round yellow. This meant that dominant traits were the round shape and yellow color. The two experiments, that means monohybrid experiment and dihybrid experiment, led to the formulation of Mendel's laws. Mendel's laws consist of mainly three laws. First one is law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. First is law of dominance. This is also called as Mendel's first law of inheritance. According to the law of dominance, hybrid offsprings will only inherit the dominant trait in the phenotype. The alleles that are suppressed are called as recessive traits, while the alleles that determine the traits are known as dominant traits. Next is law of segregation. The law of segregation states that during the production of gametes, two copies of each hereditary characters or hereditary factors segregate so that offsprings acquire one factor from each parent. In other words, allele pairs segregate during the formation of gamete and reunite randomly during fertilization. This is also known as Mendel's third law of inheritance. And next, law of independent assortment. Law of independent assortment, also known as second law of inheritance. The law of independent assortment states that a pair of traits segregate independently of another pair during the gamete formation as the individual hereditary factors assort independently. Different traits get equal opportunity to occur together.